But does it direct me? You know why? Because I take it to God and I get back to work. I take it to God and I get back to work. Why? Here's the harsh reality. Because I don't answer to you and I don't answer to my critics and I don't answer to anybody else. Who do I answer to? I answer to Jesus Christ. You don't answer to your critics. You answer to Jesus Christ. So, I've set up something. So if anybody wants to criticize me, they can send me an email. And the email address is darren@idon'tgiveup.com.
Darren. Carrie's not in here. She would yell at you.
Carrie helped me write it. So.
Oh, okay.
See, you thought, but And then you get an automatic reply that says, I don't give a, have a blessed day. I knew Jennifer would like that.
There is written ones though too, right? So,
I don't read the written ones.
I'm
Email me. You'll like the response much better. So you got it from outside. And then you got, that's really a lie. I didn't really set that up. Wouldn't it be funny though?
Yeah,
Awesome.
okay.
Jordan went back to yes, put the word in it though, Dad. Put the word in it. So you got it from the outside, and then you got them from the inside. Look at verse 10, first part of it. It says, then the people, now mind you that these people have already worked, and they've worked with enthusiasm, and they have seen progress, and they've built half a wall around the city. Then all of a sudden, verse 10 comes up. Then the people of Judah began to complain. The workers are getting tired, and there's so much rubble to be moved. We will never be able to build the wall by ourselves. We can't do it.
Why?
We don't have what it takes. Who are we to think we can build the walls? We've been down for 140 years. Nobody's ever done it. We aren't good enough. We aren't smart enough. There's not enough of us. And then, when you're wallowing in your own self-pity, comes up and goes, who do you think you are? You ain't nothing but a doo-doo. Well, don't you smile. Who do you think you are? You're just a... And who do you think you are? You ain't nothing but a concrete man trying to pay your bills. And who do you think you are? You're some middle-aged guy with no hair trying to lead a bunch of people that you don't even have a theological seminary degree. Ooh, now he's got you twice. He's got you believing your own noise, and then he comes up behind you, whispers in your ear, boom. Who do you think you are? You ain't nothing but a stay-at-home mom. You ain't nothing but a school teacher. You ain't nothing but a retired fireman. You ain't nothing but a small business owner. You ain't nothing but a High Brothers worker. You ain't nothing, you ain't nothing, you ain't nothing. Anybody relate? I can promise you when you step out in faith to do something on behalf of God, you're going to face four things. Opposition, obstacles, discouragement, and doubt. Four things. Opposition, obstacles, discouragement, and doubt. Anybody felt any of those? You like how they feel? And it's not because you're doing something wrong, but it's because you're doing something right. Thank you. That's right. Because so many times we think when things start going bad, it's because we're screwing up, we're messing up, we're not doing the right thing. Because if you're following God, if you're following Jesus Christ and you step out in faith, these things are going to come, because now all of a sudden you're standing up to Satan and you're going, come on. Because you ain't nothing but, no, I'm not going to say it. I want you really bad. So how do you defeat it? How do you defeat discouragement? Here's where it gets good. Verse 14. Let's read it. Then as I looked over the situation, I called together the nobles and the rest of the people and said to them, don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember the Lord who is great and glorious. Don't be afraid. Remember the Lord. When he said, remember the Lord, that was a loaded statement. When he spoke that to his people. Sorry. And here's why. He's saying to them, remember when we were in bondage. Remember when your ancestors were slaves. Remember when God raised up one from within us and his name was Moses. Remember when Moses encountered God in a burning bush that was not consumed. Remember when God said to Moses, you deliver the people, and Moses didn't feel capable. Why? Because he had a stuttering problem. So God said, hey, you give me your voice, I'll give you my words. Remember when Moses stood down Pharaoh and said, let my people go. Remember when Pharaoh said no, and God brought the plagues that turned his heart. Remember our people when they set out and the Egyptians pursued us. Remember when God parted the sea and our forefathers marched through the dry ground. Remember when he fed us with manna from the sky. Remember when. Remember when. Remember the Lord our God. When I get discouraged, I remember. I remember 20 plus years ago when my wife held me on the bathroom floor for 3 hours as I cried my eyes out because of the sin I had wallowed in my whole life. I remember when God said, hey, I need you to walk away from this job because I've got a plan for your life. And I told my friends about it and they thought I was the nuttiest guy that they'd ever heard. I remember when my middle daughter, when we were facing a situation within my own family, said, hey, the one thing that we have to do is we have to pray. And she led my family in prayer. I remember sitting discouraged at the end of the table, and my oldest daughter said, you have to read Job 4, there's something in here for you. I remember sitting at the edge of my table when the Lord said, go back and learn about Elijah. And this is what I want you to do. I remember last Sunday and every Sunday past as I watched God bring people in who earnestly seek Him and not me. So I remember. It's time that you remember. It's time that you remember what path God has had you on. It's time that you remember what He has done for you. It is time that you remember what He has done through you. And get out of your ash. Number 2, fight for your cause. Second part of verse 14. Remember the Lord who is great and glorious, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes. He's saying fight for something that's beyond your own self. You see, Christianity is not always a playground. Most times it's a battlefield. And we got to armor up, and we got to suit up, and we got to know who the enemy is, and we got to stand up, and we got to fight against him. But you see, Karen and I talked on Tuesday. And I got to be honest, sometimes I walk out of here and I go, they didn't get it today. I didn't speak your words effectively enough today. And so sometimes we sit in the ash and the rubble, and we get on this pity party. And I remember a day like Tuesday when we sat together, hands embraced, for an hour. And I sobbed. Because I knew that the only way that God was going to allow me to teach the message today is I had to go through a day like last Sunday. I had to be discouraged. I had to feel like I got to quit. I got to give up. It's not working. For Him to kick my butt and to make me stand up. What about you? Because as I told Karen, as I prayed, I said, I remember I was the kid in school that got bullied. I got picked on my whole life. I got shoved around. I got beat on. I got talked down to my whole life. Not anymore. Because I've learned how to fight. And I don't mean with this. Got to go down that way. I guess it's got to go down that way. But I remember what it was like to be pushed down and picked on and made to stain my own ash. And I don't like that anymore. So I told Carrie, I said, now I understand why I've been raised by God to be this guy, because I'm a fighter now. I fight for you. That's what my mission is. It's to give you the message of Jesus Christ in a raw, real, relevant fashion. And then to get my own self out of the way and let Him do the work through your life, not me. But my mission is to make sure that He teaches me so that I can fight for you. What are you going to fight for? Because you can't have my fight. I asked you 3 weeks ago, what breaks your heart? Are you going to fight for those mamas who have aborted their babies and they feel like they got no hope? Are you going to fight for those alcoholics and the drug dependents who feel like they got no hope? Are you going to fight for the kids that don't have any moms or any dads because they don't feel like they got any hope? What are you going to fight for? Fight beyond yourself. I fight for my wife. I fight for my kids. I fight for my grandbabies. I fight in the name of Jesus Christ because it's that important to me that they see me fight with Him and for Him. Because someday He's going to take me home and I want His legacy to continue through them. What are you going to fight for? Or are you going to sit on the sideline and go, too hard, too rough, don't like criticism, don't like this, don't like that, let somebody else do it? Or are you going to be like Nehemiah and say, okay, I'm going to let my heart break and I'm going to trust you that you're going to make my misery my ministry. What's it going to be? And I'm going to trust you that you're going to equip me just like He equipped Moses, who could speak in public. And He said, you give me your voice and I will give you my words. And He said to Pharaoh, you let my people go. Or are you going just to assume that you're just not important? That you're just a high school graduate, you're a college kid, you're somebody retired, you're somebody that's gone through. He's got a story to tell through your life. Are you going to be Nehemiah and say, I'm going to travel, and I'm going to dig that ditch, and I'm going to burn my plow, and I'm going to tell my story, and I'm going to change the world through Jesus Christ? Remember the Lord, fight for your cause. Remember the Lord and fight for your cause. That's all I got. Thoughts? You guys are a lot quieter now, which is working. Here's what I want to stress to you. Next week, I'm going to ask something of you. Be prepared. Because I know that God can do something through each and every one of you to change what Camden County looks like for His kingdom. But it takes an army. Are you willing to man up, to battle up, to armor up, to go fight for your cause? Because they're all different. Because we can have a bunch of days strung together like last week where we just bottle up and we just shut down. Or we can say that is the enemy and he ain't going to bully me no more. So, come prepared next week. Because I'm going to take roll and you ain't going to get out of here until you give me what I want. Okay.